Good morning. It is, wait, what? I had a cup in front of my clock. 7:15 a.m. on Saturday, December 16th, 2017. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. So, a couple of things going on today. First and foremost, Luna has a lot of recovery still to do, but I am bringing her home today. So, also, like when I went to visit her, um, she just does still have a lot of recovering to do. So, that hurts my heart a little bit just to see her, um, you know, like that. But, the hope is that, she'll be improving a little bit day by day. And that's when the surgery will feel worthwhile, right? Because, oh well, I don't know. We'll see. I'm just anxious is all. Because I want to take good care of her and I want her to feel good and be happy. So that's happening. I'm also planning to be running this Curse of Strahd game session today, so that'll be on Twitch later today at 1 p.m. And now, for the bulk of the episode today, I will give a spoiler free review of Star Wars Episode 8. Yes. Not The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi. Gosh, they all blur together after a while, don't they? Um, I liked it a lot. It's not perfect. It has some issues, I would say, with pacing. Just the sort of visual spatial logistics of a few scenes felt a little wonky to me. Um, and when I say that, what I guess I mean is the ability to look at a scene and have a good sense of what is happening in the space, as opposed to seeing a bunch of things happening but not necessarily having a good understanding of how all the pieces are fitting together in a three-dimensional shape, if that makes any sense. So there's a few places where it just felt a little bit wonky like that, and I think that there's parts of it that feel kind of slow. However, it also has some big deal stuff in it that I thought was really good and really exciting, and is a lot to chew on in terms of what it does with the mythology. And I continue to like the characters, but it gives several of them a little bit more to process. There's some unexpected turns in it, and on the whole, I really liked it, but there's also, like I said, there's a lot to process still. Um, it's definitely one of those movies, and there are several others that I can think of, where you see it the first time and you're so kind of caught up wanting to just get that first level of, well, what are the actual things that are happening? And so it might take a second viewing or even more to really fully absorb everything that's happening there, just because, the first time you see it, you're kind of just caught up in plot. And I just remember, like, for example, one movie sort of like that is The Big Lebowski, where when I first saw it, I didn't like it. But on subsequent viewings, once I wasn't trying to figure out the plot anymore, I was able to enjoy that movie's real pleasures, which is just the moment to moment character interactions. And that's not what I'm saying exactly about The Last Jedi. I'm not saying that the plot doesn't matter or you just have to get past it, but rather, when you are kept constantly off balance by the plot, it can be hard to kind of settle on an understanding of what you think about the rest of it. And so, once you kind of know the plot, you can put the rest of it in a context, if that makes sense. So, I thought that it was really good, but with some issues, and I love what it does for the world. of the story, and I like how that's moving forward. But without going any more into detail about any of the plots or anything, because like I said, I want this to be spoiler free. I am a little bit surprised at how there's a faction online, and maybe I shouldn't call it a faction because I don't know that they actually all are complaining about the same things necessarily. But it seems like there is a significant percentage of the audience for the movie that apparently really, really does not like it. And that kind of struck me as odd. Like, whenever I was hearing about the initial reviews, hearing that some people say, oh, yeah, it's really, really good. And then other people saying, what? No, it's terrible. It's awful. It's the worst thing ever. And I'm like, that's weird. It's oddly polarizing. And now and so what I expected was that, oh, well, there must be some really just very highly polarizing things about it. Now, having seen it, I guess I could see that, but at least at this very early stage, trying to get a handle on what it is that the people who didn't like it didn't like, I'm not sure I agree with them. And not just in a subjective way, but just in a way of like, what? I don't like, because like I said, I thought that the movie has some issues. It has some pacing issues. It has some logistical issues, and I think that's fine to not love everything about it. But some of the complaints, I just hear them and I'm saying, wait, what? I don't even understand how that you saw that in this movie. But okay. I mean, some of that I guess is still subjective, and anyone who didn't like it, I mean, I'm not telling you you're wrong. I mean, because that's a subjective thing. But I think one thing I've definitely talked about in other contexts before is that, especially with a big high profile media project like this with an established fandom, it is possible to build your expectations up in a way that makes your expectations so specific that almost nothing could ever actually meet it, just because that person doesn't literally share your brain. And I wonder if that's part of what happened here, is that people wanted specific answers. So instead of saying, I want to see where the story is going, I think some people, and this may not encompass all of the people who didn't like the movie, but I think there are some people who went in saying, I have a theory about every single mystery in the story, and I want the movie to prove me right so that I can feel smart about it. And then the movie doesn't do that. And now they're mad because it made them wrong. And instead of getting to feel smart, they feel dumb. So I could understand a visceral emotional reaction to that, even though the whole thing is predicated on them setting up unrealistic expectations. Because I would definitely encourage people, especially in a case like this where it's not like the Harry Potter movies where there were already books about what the story was going to be, and so the movies might tweak things here and there, but there is an existing canon that could either be adhered to or diverged from. Whereas this one is like, well, we don't know what the next chapter is until they tell us. And so for you to, or for anyone to go in saying, I think I've got it all figured out, I know what happens, and if it's not just like that, then everything's terrible. And that's just a bad way to watch movies. And I don't mean that in a sense of like, like they're bad people, but just like that way to watch movies is just going to make you unhappy. So, what I would say is always best to go in with an open mind. But personally, I think that some of the things that happen in this movie that are going to be upsetting of the apple cart is probably what a lot of people who are angry didn't like. Is they don't like those apple carts being upset. I liked those apple carts being upset personally. So that's the movie. I liked it. There's a lot to process, but I really like a lot of what it does, even though the movie, I think, does have some issues. So did Force Awakens, and frankly, so did the original trilogy. The prequels, of course, they did, because everybody knows that now. So, none of the movies are perfect, but what I have always loved about them is how they live in your head, the characters, the ideas, the concepts live in your head and expand into this larger world in your brain. That's what I've always loved about Star Wars, and I love how this movie continues that for me. So I'll leave it there, and now I've got to get ready to go bring my little dog home. So I'll talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes, and it'll be Sunday, so I will finally do the next episode in my Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex rewatch, assuming no other things come up to prevent me. All right. Talk to you tomorrow for 5 more minutes.